Hi, it's Linh Podetti here. Welcome to our Rise and Shine show where we shine light on amazing Asian success stories. Now, today's success story is from my guest, Khanh Nguyen, who is a Vietnamese-Australian chef. He is a part owner of a Southeast Asian restaurant called Sunda Dining and also Aru restaurant in Melbourne. Now, Khanh has won numerous awards, including the 2020 Victorian Chef of the Year from Restaurant and Catering Industry Awards to Gourmet Traveller's Best Takeaway Fine Dining Award in 2020, 2 hats from the Australian Good Food Guide and the World's Best Top 50 Discovery List. Khanh Nguyen has worked with some of the world's best chefs, and inspired by the flavors of Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam, he has created some of the most delicious Asian fusion dishes. Now listen up as Khanh shares some of his stories around why he decided to get into the chef industry, any tips around succeeding in hospitality, and how he got himself featured in shows such as MasterChef and more. Okay, Khanh, so good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I wanted to bring you on because I get so much craving from looking at all your photos on Instagram. But not only that, I really think that your profession is very different to what most Asian parents expect of you, right? Me getting into the business world is still, it's not that far off, but getting into kind of cooking is quite different. And I think on this channel, we really want to shine light on amazing success stories of Asian people around the world and really inspire people to get into areas that is their passion, that is their love, not just the things that their Asian parents want. So yeah, Khanh, can you share with me how was growing up like with your parents being Vietnamese and being from the north of Vietnam as well?
I mean, they never really liked the idea that I was going to start cooking. I mean, because obviously they moved to Australia to try to give us a better life than they had. Obviously, it was quite tough in Vietnam. So when they knew that I wanted to be a chef, they're like, we've just, put you through pretty good school, all these tutoring and stuff. Like, why are you working, your crazy 80-hour weeks when you can study and do something a lot more easy or relaxing, like an office job, like a 9-to-5 kind of job. But I guess the toughest thing for me is my parents obviously came here and whatever the job they did was all about just making money to put food on the table for their children, right? And they didn't understand what passion was, and they didn't understand how hard people work for, what they're passionate about. So it was probably like the first 8 years of my career, my parents were telling me to do something else, like literally 8 years down the track. And at that point, I was doing okay. I've worked at a lot of good restaurants, but I haven't really done anything for myself yet. So they didn't see any success. So they thought I was just kind of going down a road where I didn't know where I was going. But like every place that I worked there for a reason. Like there were certain things that I wanted to learn at this restaurant. It didn't matter what the pay was. It didn't matter what the hours were. There was just things I wanted to learn to kind of put me in a place better in the future. So it wasn't until I moved to Melbourne and opened Sunda was when they actually started to see a bit more success. Like the day that I told them that I was moving to Melbourne to open a restaurant, that was the day they told me that they are retiring. So it was kind of a big thing because they still had a mortgage to pay that I was helping them pay. So I moved to Melbourne and I was helping them pay mortgage, obviously trying to settle in, paying rent. So it was pretty tough. And my parents, they don't know much English. I mean, they've got like Instagram and Facebook, but they don't know what they're doing. They're just, scrolling around and just seeing pictures and stuff, and that's it, right? So like whatever coverage I had in the media, they saw it, but they didn't understand the extent of it. But I had aunties that knew a lot of English and stuff, and they would tell my parents like, oh, your son's actually doing really good. And then they kind of slowly started to understand, oh, our son's actually, he's actually a good chef. And then obviously they eventually saw me on TV a couple of times, saw me on the news. And I think it was probably 10 years down my career where they're actually like proud of me, I guess, or they actually saw that I knew what I was doing. Like before that, they're like, he's just working his ass off for what? They didn't know. So now it's kind of nice because my family was kind of like, I guess, the bad family out of all the relatives. You know how like all the aunties and stuff, they like judge you on how you do. Me and my older brother, we didn't do really well in school, like because I knew I wanted to be a chef since I was like 8 years old. So I mean that's not a reason not to do well in school, but like I kind of like, oh, you don't need to do this to be a chef, that's it. So I just did school for the sake of it. I wanted to drop out at one point to be a chef, like after year 10, but my parents made me stay because, all the aunties and stuff will be judging you and all that. And then they kind of looked down on us, like judged us as like, oh, they're like to my parents, oh, you don't know how to teach your children. Because all my cousins are actually very smart. They all like went to uni and they did well. And now they kind of respect us a bit more just because I'm a bit more successful. It's, it's the Asian thing.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of this is obviously my passion. I love doing what I do. I love cooking. But the other side of it is I want to make my parents proud as well, which kind of on top of the passion kind of makes me work a lot harder as well. So, I mean, it's a combination of both those things that kind of got me to where I am.
Yeah, I can totally relate to you because, deep down, like we really just want to make our parents proud. But in that journey, it's so difficult because they make it so hard on us. The people that we're trying to do it for is against us, is how I felt. So did you share with us like some of those challenging moments, like was it really fiery fights? Did you really have to push through to stick to this career?
Well, I think I made it hard for myself as well because, I mean, I've got a bit of a temper, especially when I'm tired. So throughout my career, an average week is about 70 hours. And there was a certain point where I was working like 85, 90-hour weeks. So I was always exhausted. And then on my days off, like my parents try to care for me as much as they can, asking what I want to eat, try to cook for me, like do fresh juice for me, like whatever they can to try to help because they can see that I'm tired. But at that point, I was pretty young and I just wanted time for myself. I just wanted to sleep all day or whatever. So they think something's wrong with me. They're like, you're working your ass off and then on your days off, you're just sleeping all day. Like, what's wrong with you? Like they think I'm unhappy or, whatever. Obviously with my temper and stuff. And I'm pretty bad at communicating in Vietnamese as well because, I don't talk to them as much as I should.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get my point across when I say something and then I get upset about it and then, I get angry. So, yeah, the communication kind of was really extremely hard between me and my parents, trying to explain to them that this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I want to do. I'm working these crazy hours, but I'm happy. Like, this is what I want to do, and I'm not tired from it. It might look like it when I'm trying to have a break and stuff, but I work long hours and it's fine. Every now and then they try to call me once a week. And they always check on how many hours I worked last week. So sometimes I'll try to downplay it, but like, no, I just work 60. It's fine.
Yeah.
But they're a bit more understanding now. And yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, now you're pretty lucky because when I say North Vietnamese parents, I just assume most of them are tough like my parents. So there is no such thing as like, do you want juice? Do you want to eat something? My parents are like, you want to eat? Go get it in the fridge, right? So I had that kind of.
My parents are like strict, but they cared a lot for you.
Yeah.
Great in that way. But like, she used to tell me off a lot when I was a kid, like beat me up and stuff, the usual Asian parent stuff. But yeah, they're really caring.
Yeah. That's very lucky. And so what got you into liking cooking? Because at 8 years old, there is no way I would have known what I wanted to do. So I would say I wasted a lot of time figuring things out and went to uni, did whatever. But I love that you had so much clarity and you already knew that you didn't need to do these subjects because you had clarity. Like, where did that come from?
It sounds strange, but so growing up, my parents always loved like fresh food. So there was like live chickens and ducks are running around the backyard. It's just like in Urwood in Sydney, right?
Yeah.
So inner west, and then you had our neighbours just looking over and like, what the hell's going on over there? And then I'll come home from school some days. My mum will be like, can you hold this chicken for me? And she'll be like slitting its throat. And I'm sitting there like young, holding a chicken, just like watching it bleed out. So that kind of made me know a bit more about cooking and stuff. And the point that actually made me want to start cooking is I made a sandwich once. Like, this is when I was really young. Parents bought me a sandwich press and I was like putting all these things in the sandwich press, like eggs and stuff. And it was like very simple food, but I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like making something different for my parents to try it. And they're like, oh, it's actually pretty good. I don't know if they actually thought it was good, but they're like, oh, this is pretty good. And it kind of just gave me that sense of accomplishment where it's like, this is like a kind of profession where you can always get better at, you can get creative with. But then obviously that's me, the young me, thinking that it was going to be all easy where you can just make food and serve it right. The first maybe 5 years of my career or something, I've struggled with a bit of like creativity. No one told me that I wasn't creative. I just thought that on my own. But then, yeah, when you actually try to, put dishes on the menu and stuff, it actually all works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with your food, your cuisine, what would you describe it as?
There's a word that no one likes. That's fusion. So I'm not going to call it that. I guess it's modern Australian. It's a lot of modern techniques. It's a lot of Asian flavors, Asian inspired flavors. And we also use a lot of indigenous Australian ingredients as well. So stuff like bush tomato, lemon myrtle, finger lime, like ingredients that you don't really pair that much with Asian food. When we opened Sunda and we were doing that, it's kind of like an eye opener for everybody. People kind of didn't know that it works so well with Asian food, because obviously Asian food's all about balance, right? You got your salty, spicy, sour, bitter, and a lot of indigenous Australian ingredients are really sour. So by using that instead of lime or tamarind or whatnot, adds kind of a different dimension, and it just creates a different experience. I think it's modern Australian food. That's how I like to call it.
Yeah. And because last time you told me about some interesting Vegemite something, how important is it nowadays to be different, to come up, to be more creative, to try something so different to stand out? Like, is this all part of the whole game of hospitality now, where you really just can't make mediocre things?
Yeah, like you kind of have to know the trends and try to stick to it and do something different and exciting. I mean, there's Sunda, and then we opened a restaurant called Aru maybe about 3 or 4 months. I can't even remember, since we've been in lockdown for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been
Blur.
in lockdown longer than we've been open. But you can actually like see all the customers from Sunda going to Aru like as soon as we opened. I mean, it's great for Aru, but then for Sunda, obviously, it was still really busy, but people always wanted to see what the new thing. A lot of my close friends been to both restaurants, and they all both like they love Sunda more, but like for the general public, they just want to see what's new, and that eat restaurant right now. So yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me more about your successes. Like I guess if you were to give advice to someone that's thinking about wanting to pursue being a chef, etc., like, yeah, any tips around what's really got you to become more well-known, being on MasterChef, being able to launch 2 businesses? So, yeah.
I think a lot of it is hard work. Obviously, I think it's like 80% hard work and probably 20% luck. You kind of, being a chef, it's hard because I've known a lot of chefs that's been cooking for 10 years, but they still don't know, like, decided to be a chef, fair enough, but then you got to know what kind of cuisine you want to do in the future as well, and how you want to, portray yourself. And that's kind of one of the most important things, like trying to figure out your own style and what kind of food you want to do. But to get to that point, you have to experience a lot. So I ate out a lot when I was apprentice chef, like literally spent all my money eating out. Every single week I'll go to one expensive or like hatted restaurant to experience something different. And that went on for years. At the time, you kind of don't really know that you're learning and getting a lot out of it. But obviously I'm tasting a lot and my palate is getting better and better. You kind of don't see that your palate's getting better until it's your time to kind of create a menu and then, come up with all these amazing flavors. And like for me, I get all these inspirations from just anything. Like sometimes I can walk down the street and I can smell something and I'm like, oh, it smells like this. I'm going to try to make this, and then it all kind of works out. I guess a piece of advice is kind of just work hard and be smart about what you do and where you work. I think like for a chef, it sounds weird, but you kind of have to keep working on it. It's kind of like falling in love. Like you don't know when you fell in love. This is actually a quote from Tim Bilyeu. Is it Tim or Tom?
Tom Bilyeu.
Oh, yeah, Tom Bilyeu.
Yep.
I think he said something about like, it's like falling in love where you kind of don't know when it happens, but it happens. Like you kind of keep working on it and then it eventually happens. And an example he gave was like going to the gym, right? Like if you look at the mirror every day, you don't really see the progress, but a couple of months down, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I'm a lot more fit now. And I think cooking is kind of the same. Like I remember as an apprentice, I used to get told off a lot and I didn't know what was going on, and then all of a sudden, like it just clicked and I just got it. Like I just understood everything that was going on, like out of nowhere. There was just that click. So I guess just put your head down and just keep working and obviously think about what you're doing. And like for me, every day when I get home from work, I'll think about my day and where I can improve and what things I can do better to make my life easier. But that's like a thing that happens every single day. And that's kind of what you want to do. Like you can't just expect to go to work and go home and not think about work. And again, like when I was in my training stage, when I was apprentice, like I was scared to take a day off because I'm like, if I take this day off, there's going to be things that I'm not going to learn, you know? So I used to work a lot, and I mean, it all kind of paid off in the end.
Yeah, I think I can really relate to you because even me, I'm obsessed with business. Like even if I have a day off, I'll listen to some business podcast or but it doesn't feel like work to me because I'm just obsessed with it, right? And when you get obsessed with something, working hard is easier. And I think with yourself, you just live and breathe food, right? You walk around and you can smell it, and then your brain can't stop to do something with that information. Whereas I think when people don't succeed is like, maybe they want to start a restaurant because it looks cool and it makes money or something, but they're not truly passionate about. Would you say is that true for you?
I think so. I mean, I've actually met successful chefs through my career that they've actually literally told me that they're in it for the money, which, I mean, fair enough. If the money drives them enough, then that's good for them. Like if they're doing well, and it's just what drives you, you know. Obviously you can be passionate about multiple things, but you need something to actually drive you for those days that, you know, you wake up and you're tired and you don't want to go to work. And for some people it's money, which sounds bad. It is what it is, and people can be pretty successful, you know, trying to work for money.
Yeah. So for you, what are you fighting for? What is your purpose in life?
I just want to change people's perspective on Asian food. There's a lot of restaurants out there that does this Asian fusion thing, but it's not what I want it to be, you know? So like, you know, there's fine dining restaurants, right? And then there's the modern Asian restaurants that are doing fusion. And when you compare the two, it's something completely different. It's like, I don't know, it's just big servings and everything's just thrown on the plate, a bit of garnish on top. It's not refined. I mean, in the last maybe 4 years, there's a lot more Asian restaurants that are getting a bit more refined. And that's kind of what I want people to see, that, you know, Asian food can be, you know, you can put a lot of effort in it, and it's not always cheap. A lot of people think Asian food should be cheap. It's pretty sad. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I started cooking, just to show that you can't just get a main meal for $15 and, you know, that's it, right? There's a lot more to Asian food, and there's actually a lot more, like for some dishes, there is a lot more technique than kind of Western or French style cooking. But people don't see that because, you know, obviously being Southeast Asia, when they travel to Asia, it's like $2 for a plate of food. So it makes it a bit hard to kind of break out of that. But that's kind of what drives me.
Yeah, I love that because you're putting more value in our Asian cuisine and our culture. Because I remember when I used to always go to buy banh mi or, you know, the Vietnamese rolls. And I'm like, how could 10 years later you're just gone up by $1? Like, I don't understand. And I think it's just us Asians, or not us, but I mean like most Asian who didn't really maybe get the full education in Australia or whatever. They just think it's all about like a transaction. Like if I buy bread for 20 cents, I should only sell it for another 10 cents or something. Whereas they don't understand the value. So what would you say is the reason you believe that Asians, we kind of get stuck in our mindset of not being afraid to charge more?
I think because it's so competitive. Obviously, there's a lot of Asian restaurants out there that's probably opened 10 years ago or so. And again, like they're all just trying to get food on the table. And, you know, they're just extremely competitive, trying to put the prices down and stuff. And that's kind of how it is and what it's turned into. But I can probably tell that they are probably not doing that well. Like they don't charge enough. And I think they're just treating their labor as, you know, kind of free labor or whatever. And that's pretty sad as well. And it makes it harder for people like me. Charging maybe $40 for a main course, people will be like, oh, you can go to Chinatown or whatever and get a main course for like $20. But like we've got a team of, depends which restaurant, but for Aru, we've got a team of like 16 chefs that all collectively works to get that dish on food onto the plate to serve the customers, and they don't kind of see the real labor that's involved in that. Whereas, you know, like a suburban Asian restaurant is just like an auntie or something, you know. She's probably been there since like 7 a.m. preparing this meal, but she just doesn't, you know, charge for it.
Yeah, but I think definitely nowadays too, people also love to pay for experiences. You know, like we, as our next new generation, we're not our parents anymore who's like, you know, quantifying between that. I could have made that bowl for $2 and compared to that. But I think us younger crowd, we're kind of like, we want to experience. We want to experience even the way the dish is made or the place that we're going to. So I think it's a better time for you. would you
Yeah,
say?
of course. Yeah. I think, yeah, definitely better time. And, I think, yeah, definitely better time. And I mean, there are a lot of restaurants back then that did, modern Asian that are really successful as well. I think there's always a different crowd for, what you need to do. And there's enough people out there to want to try new things.
Yeah. Has there been any challenges being an Asian chef?
No, I've spoken to a lot of Asian chefs as well, and a lot of people have told me that it's been hard. Like, you're a minority in the kitchen and you get treated a different way. But I think the way they're treated that way is maybe the way that they portray themselves. Like, I think, like me coming into any kitchen, I don't treat myself as a minority. So once you actually see yourself as that already, then people will actually start treating you like that. So I just come in guns blazing, Like, since I was young, and I was just I've never really felt that has affected my career at all. Not one bit, no.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like when someone asks me, like, is it harder to be in business as a woman versus a man? I'm like, I actually don't notice because I just don't see myself being female or male. I just do what businesses are meant to do.
Yeah.
So you're just saying that it really comes down to valuing yourself in order to succeed in business, right? What would be your tips on if someone's listening to this and going like, okay, well, I really want to pursue my dreams. Maybe it's cooking or whatever, but I don't want to disappoint my parents, or what if I don't succeed? All these doubts that you probably might have experienced. And how did you push through all that?
It's tough. So you never know if you're going to succeed or not, right? Like, starting a business is always a risk. And I don't know, for me in my head, I'm just like, that's kind of like not an option to fail. And that's probably one of the reasons why I've worked so hard. And like before opening Sunda, I had a lot of doubts moving to Melbourne, new city. And like I told a lot of my friends that, I don't know, like what if I fail? And they can see that I'm that type of character that won't let it fail. So they told me, they're like, you're not the type of guy that will fail. And I think it's all about being confident enough in yourself to push through those boundaries and just work your ass off, basically. Some people that do fail, they kind of like just didn't give it their everything. That's maybe one of the reasons.
So you never had a plan B? You didn't have like any other hobby or another subject, and sometimes people go, okay, I'm going to do this, but then I'll just fall back into an accounting job or something. Did you have any other backup plan?
I think maybe that's why people fail, because they've got something else that they're going to fall onto. But I mean, it has been extremely hard for me, especially the first couple of years of my career. Like I was doubting it at one point, but then I was like to myself, I've already started, I'm not going to not finish it. I mean, I've still got many years to go, but I do remember my first time working a double shift. So like working 16 hours, going home, literally sleeping for 3 hours and then waking up. I remember so clearly the first time that's ever happened. I woke up, my body was aching. I had a headache. Like, I don't know, I just felt like I've been hit by a bus and I kind of wanted to cry. I just told myself like, I've chose to be a chef and I'm going to do what it takes to get to where I want. I mean, it's probably easier said than done, but that's kind of the mentality you have to be in when you want to be successful, I guess.
Yeah, nothing's easy in life, right? And how did you get opportunities like to be on MasterChef? And I see you the media all the time. Any tips for, I guess, other aspiring chefs that want to build a brand for themselves?
I guess Instagram has, made a massive impact on how the media sees you. Like once you're kind of in the media eye, when they, follow you on Instagram, whatever, like it's pretty easy to kind of, get into the media. And the main thing is you have to do something different, something exciting, something fun, but obviously it takes a lot of work to do that as well. And it's just like a lot of time I just sit there. Like sometimes my partner Heidi will just be like, what are you doing? Like, I'm just daydreaming. But like, it just looks like to normal people that I'm daydreaming. But like, sometimes something will come into my head and I'll be like so excited about it. And I'll have all these ideas and stuff. And it's these ideas that kind of get the media more like cutting into you. And they're like, oh, they want to see what you're doing and stuff. And I guess getting on MasterChef, I did something a bit different. Like I cooked a dish that was different, exciting, kind of never seen before. And that's kind of why they wanted to see me on MasterChef. Yeah, I think just kind of always have to think outside the box and just trying to do something exciting.
Yeah, and I see that you're like really embracing video content, etc. Like, and you think a chef is usually, in the kitchen making his own thing, but you're really leveraging on Instagram and showing yourself. Were you always confident on camera, or did you really have to work yourself up and go, I need to do this for my business?
I was not always confident on camera. I was always like, I struggled in school with like, speeches and stuff, and like all the subjects and stuff that require you to do speeches. I did extremely poorly in them. But with cooking, obviously, I'm talking about what I love, about my passion. So there's just a different side of me that comes out. I mean, at the start, it was a bit, daunting to be on camera, to know that you're being recorded, and then, seeing yourself afterwards and listening to your own voice. It's always a bit weird. But I don't know, for some reason, like when it's talking about food and cooking, I can kind of go on about it for days. Yeah, a lot of my friends kind of can see that as well. Like sometimes we go out and then I'll meet a chef, right? And then I could just spend like half an hour talking and I just forget about my friends. And they're like, what's going on? But yeah, it's just like, it's talking about what I love. So it makes it a lot easier.
Oh, that's really good. Now, just on the topic of lockdowns, I know I think Melbourne might be easing very soon, but what got you through these uncertain times, especially in Melbourne, on and off? Can you think back of how you felt when it first happened, and then over time, how have you been feeling?
So it happened in probably, I think, March or April last year, right? The month before the lockdown was our best month since we opened. So we're open for like 2.5 years, and it was our best month in terms of, staffing levels, how everyone's hours got dropped down. And we made some profit as well, which was amazing. But like everything kind of just worked. The chefs weren't overworking and all that kind of stuff. So like the formula works, right? And then all of a sudden the lockdown happened, and it was pretty tough, the first lockdown. Can't remember how long it was, but like I basically tried to do something different as the takeaway offering. So we're doing like our staff meals, because we used to make pretty amazing staff meals. Like the staff get fed extremely well, and like people always used to message me and joke around saying, hey, can I buy that or whatever? Can I work for you so I can eat that kind of food? So we started doing that, but it was really hard as well because, cooking all this food and then packaging it so that people can take it home and reheat it, because we served it in it was chilled so they can take it home, reheat it. So it's like a restaurant quality meal. So that made it really hard. After the first lockdown, like we made it through, we were doing, takeaways, and a lot of my chefs kind of worked 1 or 2 days a week to help me. And then it wasn't until the second lockdown where, everyone was a bit more comfortable. They knew what they were expecting. And we launched another takeaway business with Providore, which helped us a lot. And I kind of had a bit more free time to be creative. So like through my career, like it's always been about, being at work and doing things. Obviously, like I come up with menus and stuff, but there's always restrictions. I couldn't learn something new because my time was limited. And then it wasn't until the second lockdown when I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to make use of my time. And that's when I learned a lot of, new techniques, like learned how to do pastry and stuff. And that's kind of come a long way since then. Like the dish that I did on MasterChef was something that started during lockdown. It's because I had that time on my hand where, I was able to experiment new things. And I think if it wasn't for lockdown, that dish wouldn't be what it is. As bad as it sounds, like it's been tough, opening and closing and stuff, but it has given me a bit more freedom, more time. And it's probably given me more time to open Aru as well. So Aru, my second restaurant, was meant to open May last year. So it was delayed by a whole year. And through the whole year, it's always just thinking about, when is this going to open? Before opening Aru, one of my biggest concern was, what if I left Sunda to open Aru and then Sunda turned into shit because I wasn't there? And then opening Aru, obviously being a new restaurant, it's always a risk. And maybe if that didn't work out, then I'd end up with no restaurant, right? All I wanted to do was just to open Aru as quick as possible so I can actually experience it and just feel if it's going to work or not. But then obviously being in lockdown for so long, it was just like for a whole year just doubting it. But then again, like because I'm doubting it for so long, I kind of thought to myself, I can't let it fail now. I've got like another year of planning. So I think lockdown, it kind of worked out in the end. Like it's not ideal, but it's kind of given me a bit more time and more freedom to do things. Yeah.
Yeah, I love your positivity, because I see that instead of just, blaming and being angry about it or being despair, you're really just making the most of the situation. And I remember because, you're dating my friend Heidi, and when it was lockdown again, I said, oh, no, how's Khan feeling? And she's like, oh, he just says, cool, I get to spend more time with you, babe. And I'm like, that is so sweet. So I think that is that kind of mindset that you need in order to succeed being a chef, it is a business, right? And as an entrepreneur, unfortunately, you just have to keep on overcoming challenges and being better than the challenge, right? With 2022 coming along soon, what are you hoping to achieve next year?
I hope that we don't go into another lockdown. I mean, it's not good for the staff, obviously, for their mentality and stuff. It's pretty tough for them to go in and out of lockdown. So I want to at least operate Aru for a good, 6 months and not close, because it takes 3 months to actually get used to a restaurant and like get all systems in place and stuff. But we haven't had that 3 months. So it's just dragging, and people they're unsure about the actual job and stuff. So I'm hoping that we can stay open for a bit longer than a couple of weeks. In terms of 2022, what I'm hoping to achieve, like we're thinking about different concept for another restaurant. Can't say what it is yet, but we're kind of always trying to get creative and do different things. So, I mean, Aru kind of came along when I spoke to my business partner about cooking over fire, how it's like, being a chef, you can kind of just do what you love. Like with Sunda, when we opened it, I was like, I wanted to refine Asian food, and that's what I love. So we opened that. And then Aru, it's like, what, I also love cooking over fire, and, the different style of cooking. There's also other things I love cooking. So, the possibilities are endless. You never know what's going to happen, but obviously, at the moment, we're trying to get Aru up and going permanently. And like we've been open for less than we've been shut for. So,
and I'm praying for you guys all in Melbourne. And Sydney's opening up now. And I also pray that I could have normality, because the on and off thing is just not good for anybody. I guess my last question for you, Khan, is, ultimately, what do you want the world to remember you for?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one thing that actually crossed my mind, what actually pushed me as well to do what I do. And obviously you can live your life, and when you die, what are you going to be remembered for? There's a lot of great chefs out there that are remembered for what they did for the hospitality industry. So I mean, I guess for me, when I die, I want people to kind of see that, Khanh Nguyen, he's that chef that changed the way people saw Southeast Asian food in Australia, or if not the world. That's kind of one of what I think, what I want to be remembered for.
I was so proud of you, and you've got my middle name as well, and you're Vietnamese, so yeah. Well, thank you so much, Khan, for your time. It was so inspirational to hear your story, plus you're so positive. So yeah, thanks for spending time with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this episode with Khan, let me know in the comments below. If you have any suggested people that you'd like us to interview or topics that you'd like us to cover, let us know as well. Well, thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.